Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch, and yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, dying, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between with some amazing people out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. And we all know that when it comes down to grief and everything that comes with it, it's a wide variety of things that comes into it. And we have some people that just walk those walks and here to share the light on all the things that come along with it. Now, before I get started, I would like to say, if this is your first time, do me a favor. Head on over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, if you have any questions or comments, since this is a live stream, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, one other thing. This is for educational purposes only. And without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Mr. Sam Mitchell, to the show. Sam, how you doing, brother?
Hey, buddy. Good to be here, my friend. Nice to be here. Always good time.
Always, man. And so, man, before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience, man. Tell people who you are, where you're from, about the work that you do.
Well, give me a second here. I realize I have to wear my glasses on when I'm on the screen because I'm farsighted now, it appears. So, hello, everyone. My name is Sam Mitchell. I run a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls. It's a podcast about autism and how we cope with daily struggles that you may or may not understand. Through the podcast, it's grown so much. I developed sponsors, a board of 6. I'm an event planner in Indianapolis, where I'm from. I also do motivational speaking services. I've spoken in Oklahoma, Orlando 3 times, Canada twice, Stewart, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Through the podcast, though, what I'm really trying to do is change the stigma of a population that, in my view, A, gets ignored way too often, and B, gets ridiculed for the most ridiculous reasons alive.
Yeah. Oh, wow, man. I love that, man. So now let's talk about your journey, man. You know what I'm saying? And most importantly, man, thank you for the work that you do. You know, it's very important that people do understand what autism really means, because I think a lot of times when people think about autism, they think about the nonverbalness, or they don't think about the people who actually do function, or the problems that, or the challenges that may come about with them. So let's talk about your journey. How did you get into this work?
Well, I started to join my high school's media club. I fell in love with it so much, I decided to start my own podcast, and that was when Autism Rocks and Rolls was born. But I was really helping out with my school's podcast first, but I didn't want to wait till college to expand my media skills that I learned, and I decided to go ahead early and start my own show, which it was meant to be a hobby at first, but it grew more than what I expected.
Yeah. Now, what was your journey like? Because you are autistic, correct?
Yep.
Now, what was it like growing up as a kid? Being misunderstood that you would like to share with the audience.
It was one of the worst feelings alive. I was excluded and bullied a lot, pushed off to the side because they thought it would be easier to just not deal with me since I was very different compared to a lot of the other children. I would always think a lot of times, why am I the one getting pushed off to the side because I'm doing everything right, I thought. Yet this person who's cutting classes, getting Thursday schools, acting all snooty, is the popular kid in school. I don't get it.
I think when it comes down to it, listening to you, man, I've seen the cruelty of people, right? And how they mistreat people that they don't understand. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I wish it was the other way around, but it's so stupid that it is that way, because what are you going to gain from them?
This is true. And, we live in a world now to where, I come from a different generation where we were taught to treat people with kindness and respect, and just treat them like human beings. And it seems like things have changed throughout the generations. And you come from a younger generation.
Yeah, I do come from a different generation where we were taught respect, but I think we were just starting to push the boundaries of parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I would say, as bad as it is today, because now the problem is parents are enabling their children too much.
This is very true. How do we educate people Um, yeah, how do we begin to educate people? Because you have a podcast and your podcast is doing really well and you're making a difference. You remind me, you're just like another friend of mine that's out there doing the same thing. And he's just been, he's been educating people and telling people like, hey, it's not what you think it is. I actually have a friend of mine, his daughter's autistic. And, I see the some of the things that she goes through, and I sit down with her all the time. Like she's my little buddy, and everything. She returned to 9 this year. She's my little buddy, and she's always like, Uncle Tony, these kids, they just really irritate me all the time. So we always have these conversations. But I've also seen the more extreme end of the nonverbal as well. And how can we educate people on how to um, hold space with individuals with autism?
Well, I think your best way to educate them is probably to look at some parts of the internet, but not all the way, because the internet's great for what will happen. Because the internet might say, well, your child's going to have meltdowns, but it's not going to tell you what to do about them. It's
Right.
bad. But it's also important to see how they socialize, because you're right, they don't socialize like anyone else.
Right.
And when someone doesn't see that, they think, oh, he's the weird kid from school. But he's not. He just operates a little differently, which is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, when we talk about, the socialization, how do we recognize these things, right? Because for one, I was one of those kids that never really socialized a lot when I was a kid. I loved being by myself because it was quiet for the most part, and I loved art when I was younger, and even when I did get out into, in the neighborhoods and things like that, I pretty much just stayed to myself a lot. Although I was getting a lot of trouble. I was definitely getting in a lot of trouble. So in your own experience, throughout your journey, how did you change the dynamic
I would say
socializing?
dynamic just by really going out. It's going to sound like I'm LGBTQ, but I'm not, coming out of the closet, because at the end of the day, that's what I did. I just was out there, didn't care what people thought of me, and not only educate, but show my personality I had and show people, oh, this person with autism isn't all that bad. I actually had a friend who shall remain nameless. He said a while back ago, he felt bad for people with autism, and I didn't think he was scared of them, but he didn't know how to interact with them. But now, being friends with a couple people with autism, he's now seen, oh, they're not all that bad.
Right.
There's some really great qualities of them.
I wanna ask you, because I've been watching this guy. He's a pianist and he's autistic, and I love this guy, man. I love him, and he explained something to me, and I wanna just get a deeper understanding of maybe how you may see the world. But he explained how he saw music on the piano. He said he could see the notes, right? And he associated the music from classical to blues to jazz and everything into one single line, and he was able to read it that way. Now, the way that you may view the world, how do you make sense out of it? And simplify it to make it beautiful for you.
Well, you can go into what this guy has. So he sees piano. I see music notes and certain sounds of music. So I can easily remember right now the beat of Fireflies by Owl City. It's do 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 do.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I could easily visualize that.
Wow, man. I love that because that's fascinating. And now, when you look at other children that are becoming adults, that have these special gifts. Like I know a young lady right now. She is she's very very creative. Like she loves to paint, and she'll go and she gets hired to go and paint these murals on walls and on glass and things like that. Is it the same thing that in your opinion, how
Uh,
they see it as well?
Very similar because I think sometimes I'm trapped inside my own head because
Mm,
I'm trying to get a thought out, but it's trying to figure out how to word it or trying to process it, explain it, and even trying to communicate to someone. I actually know someone who I think is going to is Dallas going to high school? Oh, you sure? Okay. Well, I know someone in our community, and um, he has autism, but the thing is, his brain is non-stopping.
mm.
So trying to communicate it doesn't come out for him. But what his teacher's done, who is phenomenal, is she gave him a whiteboard. And now what he can do is when he's trying to talk about Humpty Dumpty, for example, and trying to explain Humpty Dumpty, I read Humpty Dumpty this morning. He can draw out Humpty Dumpty.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I love that. Now, do you think the awareness of people understanding autism is becoming wider? People are becoming more knowledgeable about it. In your own thoughts, because I see the different spectrums of it. You know, I see people going, you know, saying things, and I look at them and go, "Look, man, don't do that, right?" You know, because people are quick to criticize things that they don't understand. I had a conversation with someone a while ago, and I told him, I said, you know, there's people in this world that are just cruel for no reason, and unless they are directly impacted, like by a family member or something like that, they really they really are just very ignorant to the fact of, you know, that people are human beings, and this is, you know, this is something that needs to be taught um, on a wider scale, because then you have guys like yourself that are out here making a huge difference, that are just an inspiration in the world, and you've made leaps and bounds with just through your podcast, right? And you know, I was just reading 21,000 downloads on your podcast, which is, man, you know what, that is, I love it, man. I love that it's getting that traction. What else can we do to be able to put more out there, to bring more awareness, right? Because you also do something else, but we're going to talk about that too.
All right. Well, I think we're aware of it, but we're not accepting of it, is the kicker. I mean, if you're not affiliated with autism, it's not in your dictionary. That's bogus. We need to put it in the dictionary and it needs to be there no matter if you're affiliated with autism or not. If you're not affiliated with it, you don't have to read it. I'd encourage you to read the definition. But
Right.
if you're not, whatever, but it still needs to be there.
Right. Now, are you are there any challenges that you still that still come about for you in your everyday life?
Well, I still have the kicker of sensory issues. So as you can see today, maybe if I can pull it up, it's not, it may kind of hard to see from this angle, but it still may be raining outside. And if it's pouring down rain, it's a bad day for me because my shirt's going to get wet. And I don't like wearing a wet t-shirt.
Okay. Now, I like the fact that you said that, because I can relate to that on so many different levels, maybe just in a different spectrum. You know, so I have what they call sensory. It doesn't. It just means that my senses fire, and I'm a lot more loud, crowds of people. When the rain is out and things like It analyzes every little drop. So can you imagine 1,000 of your house, and you're constantly going, oh, that's over here, or that's over here, or this is right here. Like my mind is constantly on, on speed mode, right? It's like my brain is on, it's a constant race car track every time. It doesn't stop. Um, so when it comes in that, and that's why I mentioned the sensory thing, because there's other things that come along with that as well, like bright lights, loud noise. Are you affected by those things as well?
And it depends on it. Sometimes the light's not much, but I do have a shower light, and it's sometimes I have to keep that light off because that light is so darn bright. I literally cannot take a shower in that light. But for the most part, no. It just depends on what it is. I mean, for some, it's a lot with light, but for others, it could be different things as well.
Yeah,
Mine just happens to be a wet T-shirt.
I love that. Now, I guess my next question would be, what made you get into podcasting?
Well, I think it was just seeing that you could drop out unnecessary sounds, unnecessary voices, and you can erase the chalkboard as many times as you want to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone would have came in and opened the door right now, or if I was in the bathroom and a toilet was flushing, I could easily get rid of that. Or if you kept verbal crunching, like, Gary and I went to the store, get rid of it. And it sounds more professional.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I saw when I saw your picture, they had up there the lawyer, right? How did that come about?
Oh, I joke. That was kind of my inside joke.
I love it.
Lawyer in this picture. I literally,
Okay.
that's why I call it the lawyer picture. Although I'm not particularly, I won't say fond of it, but I wish I was wearing a bow tie instead of a regular tie, because if you look at my pictures I wear where I'm dressed up, there's a lot of times I'm in a bow tie, and personal perspective, that fits me a lot better than a regular tie.
Okay. I love the look, man. I do love the look. I can't wait. I want to see more with you in the bow tie. I think that would be really, really cool. Just to go, yeah, man. Look, check this out, right? And you got into guest speaking as well. How did you get into doing that?
Well, speaking came through literally out of a drop in the sky, because my first speaking engagement was in Oklahoma, and through social media and through the stars aligning, they found out about me. And then I just saw, oh, this could grow into a lot more. So I started applying for some. People also found about me. And then it just meshed so well. The rest is history.
Okay. And you've traveled doing guest speaking as well.
Yeah, I got a couple coming up in November. One is going to be in Oklahoma City, and then the other is going to be in Wisconsin. They're both going to be how teachers can help, or special education teachers can improve on their special education teaching skills.
Let's talk about that for a minute. How can teachers improve on those?
Well, I think the way we can improve on special education teaching is, I think the teachers sometimes, once they get to a certain age, they care more about the academics than the student themselves. And with special education, you can't do that.
Okay.
I can remember a certain, I won't say who, but I think when I was in high school, I noticed the teacher cared more about getting them ready for the day, their academics. You can't do that all the time. You gotta care about the student too.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes in there. Like, I'm going to talk from a personal experience from what I seen when I was a kid. That for some odd reason, ever since I was a kid, when I saw it, it never really set right with me. But it was something that was going on in school. They always seemed to separate the students, right? And in the way I wanted to understand it so much. Like, why not have the kids who are in special education be with the regular kids, so they can so they can, socialize, but also know what it's like to be around other children that may not have viewed the world the same way that most people, like in a cruel way, because we used to always look at them like, man, like we used to see them at lunch. And I'm gonna share this incident with you, this situation with you. So we was at lunch. They brought the kids out. They had their own separate table, and one of the kids was struggling, really, really struggling. And I started looking at me and my buddy and said, you know what? Let's go over there and just sit with them. And we got in so much trouble because we even cut up the apples and stuff. We had, as a matter of fact, that day we was having pizza, apples, and French fries. So we ended up cutting up the apples and stuff and went over to sat with them. And, it was fun for a little bit, right? Because we realized we was over there telling jokes and carrying on. And look, some of the jokes that those kids came up with, I was like, yeah, there's something wrong. It was a good time, right? The guy's name, I still remember to this day. His name is Timmy. His name is Timmy Johnson. To this day, I still know him. He is freaking cool as all get out. I mean, he has his own company and everything else. And we talk about it. He still lives in Virginia. We talk about it. He's like, man, I remember when y'all used to come over there and sit with us and stuff like that. We just get us so much trouble and stuff like that from the teachers. People don't do that nowadays. The compassion of it is gone. And I think it's a sad epidemic. How do you think it's possible to integrate and reconnect, or is it something that is necessary for that to happen to help people understand so there's not such a stigma? And then we'll talk about the stigmas that come along with it.
Well, that's a good question. So I don't know if the school that you went to had this or during your time spent, but now what the teachers and board have created is usually, in my case or my mom's case, because she's a teacher, her 5th hour is usually an inclusion class. It's where all the kids with some abilities like autism, OCD, learning disabilities, emotional behavior issues come together, and they usually have a TA in there, and typically it's where there's a TA and they are just trying to help them out. It's kind of like a teacher's assistant that's trying to aid them out a little bit with their academics. But at the same time, I feel that separation needs to be there to a point, because let's be realistic here. An 8th grader, not an 8th grader, my bad, an 8th grade teacher cannot teach a 3-year-old, a person with autism who has the mindset of a 3-year-old time, because they just, that's too far behind. They got to worry about these other kids too.
Okay, I definitely get that. So now, which leads me, because you started your own company. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about your company. How did you get into saying this is what I'm going to do, and begin to take the steps to start it? I think that's interesting.
Oh, I came home one day from school. This is how I literally did it. I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to start a podcast. And Mom, you want to tell Mr. Lynch what you said?
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I don't mean to bombard the interview.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, I usually tell this part of it just because it's funny. He came home and he said, Mom, I'm going to start my own podcast. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is, but okay, let's do it. Because I didn't know what it was. But, and then, as Sam grew up, we always, my husband and I always knew he could be successful in his own right, whatever it was. Like we didn't know, but we could see it. We could see the wheels turning with Sam. And so we always, we never gave him free passes for having autism, but we definitely gave him the resources that he needed. And it just took off from there. And we had always saw the stigma that surrounded autism and just kind of saw an opportunity to educate the world with a nonprofit. And, Sam is our executive director. He appointed me president. So I'm kind of manage everything that he does. And I manage the company, and then he's got a board of 6 right now that are very, very integral in what we do and support him. So, I really believe the reason our company is so successful is Sam's passion, with what the passion that goes behind his work. And as a mama, when it became his fight, it became my fight too. So that's kind of where we are.
Well, awesome. Well, before introduce yourself to the audience. I love the fact that you jumped on. I saw Sam walking in the background. Give him a little breather and everything. So introduce yourself. Tell people who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Gina, and I'm Sam's mom, and I'm also a teacher. I've been a teacher for 20 years. We actually came up to my classroom today I needed to get something anyway. So, but
You also won the Phenomenon Awards.
Yeah, Sam always says this, but I tell you, I don't really talk about it a lot. But within the last few months, I won in the state of Indiana. I won Mom of the Year. So, but it was through a Mom Awards out of Indianapolis, and I really appreciated Sam nominating me and wrote the sweetest essay when he did it. We went to the ceremony. I was just in awe to be in the presence of these other mothers. And when I won, it was wonderful. I cried and really appreciated it, but I was no more deserving than any of those other mamas there. So I was grateful, but I'm grateful for those mothers too. So, but yeah, I've been a teacher. Trying to think of what else. And my time is consumed with my jobs. I do 2 jobs. I teach, and then also I do Autism Rocks and Rolls Corporation.
Okay. Well, now I have you up here for a little bit, so I'm going to chat with you for just a minute, if you don't mind. Because I want to get your point of view of what was some of the stigmas, because you said you didn't give him a pass, right? And I love the fact that you didn't give Sam a pass. You said, nope, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get through it, right? Now, as a mother, what were some of the things that you saw? Some of the challenges that you saw that you think that you wish most people would pay attention to, and how did you navigate it as a mom?
Well, as far as I could, I guess I could answer that a couple of ways. But with Sam's challenges, it was he was very, very delayed in speaking. I don't think he spoke a full sentence until he was 4 or 5. And then he hated loud noises. He, was very, very routine oriented. If we messed up his routine, if we were going to go to Walmart after school and I didn't tell him, then it was a 7-hour meltdown. So we knew something was up. And so he was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. I told him that he had autism when he was 6 through a book that I read him. And it helped him tremendously because it gave verbiage and it gave language to how, what he was experiencing. So his was a pretty classic textbook autism. I'm human, and I went through the whole grieving stage of, I can't believe this is happening. I did everything right. What did I do wrong? I would put headphones on my stomach and Sam would listen to classical music, and I would and maybe even some 90s hip hop. I did. That's what I did. I mean, I would put music through there, and then I read him books before he was born. I exercised. I took care of myself, and I don't know. I just felt like I had let him down, and that's a pretty normal feeling. I think it was pretty short lived. I just remember my husband. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and he's a godsend. He's amazing. But I remember I went to bed. I just couldn't deal with it. And my husband, after giving me my time, he came in and he sat on the bed and he said, "Okay, Sam had autism yesterday, and he had autism 2 weeks ago, and you're in bed." And he said, "You can stay in bed, and Sam will have autism, or you can get up and Sam will have autism. Nothing's going to change. Sam is Sam. And together we understood that and raised Sam as Sam. Yes, he has autism, but I never considered it a total negative thing. There were some pretty hard, dark days where I wanted to just get in my car and like let someone else deal with it. But what I always noticed was society. Society stigmatized it. It's still stigmatized. And we never were sorry for Sam. I never pitied him. The society pities people who have autism, and they did, especially back then when Sam was little. But if I had a nickel for every time somebody was like, "Oh, he has autism, I'm so sorry," and we were like, "Okay, we don't really know why you're sorry. Sam's not sorry. We're not sorry. We're teaching him to embrace himself." And so that was the biggest reason that we started a corporation, was to train people and advocate for people and help them understand you don't have to be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. He's okay. Like he's contributing more to the world than a lot of people I know that don't. So that's the direction that we went in with it. Just the sheer negativity that it exists.
Okay. And I want to just, I ain't gonna keep you too long. I know you got work to do at your school. I wanted to ask, what are some of the stigmas that come along with the term autism that people don't get?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind, the words that exist, dumb, stupid. The R word needs to just evaporate into the sky, because that's used when describing somebody with a disability, or we say differently, abled. Actually, I hate the word disability, but I don't know. It's just the stigma is can't, because they have autism. But my argument is, but all of the people historically that have changed the world, they have thought differently. All of the people, and I'm not saying that all of the people that invented something or were leaders had autism. I guess what I'm saying is their brain was wired differently, and big things happened. I think like Steve Jobs. I think of all of the people in Silicon Valley who create the cell phones. I would guess that 90% of them are on the autism spectrum because of the way their brains wired. Leaders, historical leaders, Martin Luther King Jr., his brain was wired differently. Obviously, I mean, he wasn't afraid to die for equality. I could just go on and on and on and on of the people that changed the world. Albert Einstein, guarantee he had autism. So if we look at it that way, I just feel like those on the autism spectrum probably are the ones that have it figured out, honestly. And nobody else does. They're the normal ones, I feel like. So I think I heard you ask Sam the question, is it getting better? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. We have come very far in, 20, 25 years, 30 years, but I don't think we'll ever get there, but it's happening, and there's a movement, and I'm really proud that Sam's part of it. But yeah, that's a really long answer, but that's my answer.
Oh, no, that's totally fine, because I love the in-depth explanation. That way people, when they're listening to it, they actually get a better grasp of how to, of what not to do, right? The names and things like that needs to stop. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. And, the different spectrums of autism. Now, you mentioned something. I want to talk about that for a little bit before I bring Sam back on. You talked about you went through the grieving process of it, right? Can you explain? Can you dive deeper into that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a human emotion. I think that if I can't speak for any other mothers or fathers or grandmas or any caretaker, of a child, but we have a picture all laid out in our mind, and I pictured, pushing Sam in a stroller, frolicking through the park, going to zoos, and just all of these things that a lot of them didn't do because Sam couldn't handle it. And all of that, it was gone in my brain. It was gone. And I saw, instead of like this path of light of your children like growing up and getting their driver's license and going to prom and going to college and all of this very stereotypical stuff that happens, I of course we want that. We want our kids to, you know, be successful. But all of that was gone in my brain. And that was, now looking back on it's ridiculous. Like, because I always say when Sam and I speak together, if I would have been stuck there, and if there's anybody listening to your show where they get a new diagnosis and they're stuck, I'm going to tell them directly, like I'm going to talk to you directly. If you stay stuck too long, you're going to miss everything else that happens that's beautiful around you. You're not going to see it because you're going to be stuck in this very negative place in your life. And what if I had not become unstuck? What if I wouldn't have, you know, saw all the beautiful things that Sam was doing? That would have been a huge injustice to him. And so the grieving process is allowed because we're human, and nobody should ever judge you for that. But you gotta, honestly, you gotta put on your big girl pants and you gotta move on, and you've gotta recognize your children for what they are, and you gotta meet them where they are. And that's what we have to do as a society. You know, stop compartmentalizing, stop putting them in boxes, and let them be who they are, period. Move on. And I think that would solve a lot of the world's problems.
Yeah. One more question for you. I was thinking, right, because I have a model, because I do grief work with men. I work with men from all across the world, and I also educate a lot of other nonprofits who are coming into this field, whether it be mental health, addiction, you know, grief, trauma, it don't matter. I tell people, I say, look, the biggest thing that you can ever do is stop asking people to come meet you where you are, and go meet them where they are, right? You know, because what I find that a lot of people do, and I could be wrong, I just want your thoughts on this. What a lot of people do, when they get into this field, they don't know how to get outside of their comfort zone, right? They like to stay in the comfort zone where it's safe, where people that they're trying to reach is in their comfort zone, and they're not coming out of their comfort zone. So I say, if this is the work that you do, you're going to have to go in and get your hands dirty. You're going to have to go to those neighborhoods. You're going to have to go to those schools. You're going to have to go to all of these different places that these people are, so they know that you're human. Because right now, what you're asking them to do is come out of their safety, right? This is how they've survived this long. And here's the difference. And I don't know if there's, not really a difference. Here's where I think that we have that commonality that we can build upon, is that people feel safe in an environment that they're familiar with, right? And when it comes down to it, you have to be able to look at that and go, I want to go there. I want to go and see, to be able to do what I need to do. I want to go and talk with people. I want to go and sit with everyone. That way I know how to formulate the programs and things that I need to suit them, to suit the people that we serve, right? So like, I think that's where that commonality is that we can build upon, the building blocks of everything, right? You mentioned a lot of things that I can definitely relate to. When I was talking to Sam, he was saying something. I was like, dude, I can relate to everything that you just said. The sensory disorder, the sensory sensitivity, and I just have a little bit more. I have a sensory processing input disorder. So, and which is, pretty much, it's just a faster way of thinking. That's all, and I'm like, why is it a disorder if I think 1,000 times faster? I don't understand that, right? So now I want to talk a little bit of something that you may be able to answer for me. Why do you think it is that the doctors are always trying to put our children on medication? Is it necessary or no?
Yes. Sometimes. I think that, that's a loaded question. Let me think for a second. That's a good question, though. I think that in this day and age, I think you have to look at things individually. You can't, I've heard a lot of people say, okay, ADHD is overly diagnosed. We just want to medicate our kids. I think there's some truth to that. Absolutely. I think autism is overdiagnosed, honestly. And we're in the field of autism, but that's kind of another thing. But it is overdiagnosed. But I'm going to tell you something right now. If when Sam was in the 4th grade, making D's and F's, and basically having to have a one-on-one TA because he could not sit still. His teacher, I teach at the school in which Sam went to school and graduated. And she invited me to come into his 4th grade classroom and just watch. I was horrified. I didn't know this is what was happening in the classroom with his attention span. And he was drowning and he was failing. And we had to do something. So when we decided to put him on medication, it took 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 different kinds of medication to help him. His grades raised to A's and B's, and it fixed our lives. And so that's Sam's story, but I guess it has to be looked at individually. I'm a teacher. I have had kids that have come through, and I just think, oh my gosh, I can't diagnose a kid with ADHD. I'm not qualified to do that, but I've done this for 20 years. And in my brain, I just thought, please help them. Please do something so that they can learn. And, they're not going to drop out of school when they're 16 years old. So absolutely, in many cases, medication can absolutely help. But just to say that a kid, they're hyper, they have ADHD, no, it might be the fact that they're diagnosing 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds with ADHD. Yeah. They all have ADHD. Every single one of them have ADHD because they're 3, and that's what they do. They're exploring, they're learning, and it is overused. But on the flip side of that, I don't think we can make the blanket statement that we should never do that, because that's not the right thing to do.
Right. I love that. And let's talk about your organization. I don't know if Sam want to come into the picture.
From here.
Yeah, I'll give the phone back to Sam.
Okay.
I will take it from here.
Okay, he's got it. It was nice to meet you.
Awesome. Same here. Thank you.
What's
going on, brother? I saw you walking around. I was just asking your mom, and I'm gonna pose this question to you. Let's talk about your organization for a minute. Talk about the good work that it's doing. How many people are you reaching and educating people, changing the way that we are viewing autism in the world?
I think too many people on one hand are getting reach. I think that we are trying to change the stigma. I mean, I can have another example. The same guy I mentioned who drew, I think the person was not wanting to put him in the special ed, but after listening to the podcast and seeing, he's going to be successful regardless. Okay. She changed her mind.
Yeah. And your organization, how are you guys changing the world, man? You know what I'm saying? Because you guys are doing some pretty good work. You're reaching a lot of people, and it's becoming you're normalizing the way that, and I love that you're normalizing the way people are looking at autism, and you're changing people's mind on how we can approach this. What's next for your organization?
Well, there's definitely a lot of irons in the fire. We have a book coming out in the hands of a publisher. It's almost published, fingers crossed. We're getting there, I promise. And we also are in the educational modules that will talk about autism and how people can show more respect to it. I think our first module is going to be autism in the workplace, because the problem is 85% of people on the spectrum are unemployed. And it's not because they can't keep a job. Well, it's part of the reason. It's not because they can not get hired. It's because they can't keep it. Because no employees like to give those with autism feedback.
Yeah.
And they don't know why they get fired.
We could change all of that, man. We're definitely going to change all of that. So now,
I forgot. We're training emergency workers and HR people about hiring someone with autism to an emergency workers on what to do if there's an emergency and you have somebody with autism in the scene of a fire or a drug addict.
Okay. Well, that's important, man. That is. I'm glad that you brought that up, because we see the news nowadays, and we have so many people that are getting unnecessarily hurt, and sometimes worse, because our first responders or the police department or things like that, people, they don't understand it, right? You know what I'm saying? They're going on the scene, they're amped up, and they're not even thinking about an individual that may have autism or mental health issues or anything like that. They're just going in and seeing a situation and going, oh, I have to use extreme force, and then come to find out they made a huge mistake, right? That if they would have just had that training, or one of the things that I do is that I go with individuals, like when they go on high profile cases and things like that. So say, for instance, a guy may be having a breakdown. He may be trying to kill himself. The cops go on scene. I'm right there with them, because I'm the one that they call. And I go in there, I go, hold on. I know this person. Let me go over here and talk to him. Once I find out what's going on, I get the gun away from him. And there's like, everything is good. Everything is good. He was having an episode. So, you know what I'm saying? So it didn't call for you to come in and be aggressive. He would have put it down if you would have calmed him down, because he's going off of your energy. And I think a lot of it's energy transference, you know what I'm saying? Or just matching that energy in general. So I love the fact that you're doing that, man. Thank you so much for taking the initiative and going out there and training them, and also, getting into position to put somebody with them to alleviate those problems.
Right. It's just that one bad apple has to screw it up for everybody.
There you go. We don't need all that problem. Look, man, we trying to do good things in the world, right? We try to change. We try to normalize and change people's lives one heartbeat at a time through conversations, And so now, as we begin to wrap this up, how can people find your podcast?
Well, you can find me on your favorite media platform. Not a hard guy to find. If you Google me, your search engine optimization, something will pop up. I'm found on your favorite media platform, Podbean, Spotify. Easy to find. And you can find my podcast on the website, autismrocksandrolls.com. That's my homepage, and where I make announcements. I also have a Facebook page that you can follow. Not hard to find. You can get involved somehow. If you also want to drop it in an email, we can talk. I'm not a guy who pushes the door out on everybody. I'm willing to see if we can collaborate. I'm an open book, my friend.
I understand, man, and we're gonna be doing a lot more work together, man. Anything I can do to help further your cause, and whatever that looks like, I'm in there, man. I'm in there. You just say the word. You got me a hello. So now, how can people find your nonprofit?
The website, autismrocksandrolls.com. That's where I do a lot of my announcements. I also talk about the events, speaking engagements. A lot of the stuff I do is on the website.
Okay. Now, one last question for you. If Sam had a superpower, what would it be?
There's a lot to that one. I said it's either going to be super strength or ability, because I'm already invisible anyway. Might as well make it more invisible. And super strength because of my obsession with the Hulk.
Okay, look, I love that, man. I've been obsessed with bodybuilding and powerlifting ever since I was a kid. So I'm constantly in the gym, pushing myself, trying to get bigger and stronger. Just wanting to push the limits, and I'm not doing too bad. I'm 50 years old and I can bench over 500 pounds, so not too bad at all. Hulk ain't got nothing on Tony, man. Now, Hulk will probably rip me in half, but we ain't going to talk about that. All right. So, man, with that being said, if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
I think this is just words of wisdom. I think it's just the truth of life. If the world could be nice and not act so stupid, I think we get along so much better. Don't you think, buddy?
I do too. Strong words and strong words of wisdom coming from the man, Sam. Sam, with that being said, and for everybody out there, we're about to wrap up this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sam's information is in the YouTube channel. So if you know someone who is struggling with autism, or maybe yourself want to be more educated, please reach out. He just said, his email, his website, everything is there. Or maybe you guys want to hire him to come and do some guest speaking out there for you guys. All that information is there for you. With that being said, guys, I am Tony Lynch. Sam, thank you again for joining me for this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. And for everybody else out there, guys, go and enjoy the rest of your day. It's beautiful, and make sure that you're taking care of each other. Make sure that the words that you use are words that you're comfortable with, right? Because tomorrow's not promised. With that being said, we are out. I'm going to catch you guys in the next one.